And so we'll begin. I will call to order this meeting of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee of the Town of Collingwood. It is November 30th. This is technically our, I guess, December meeting. And I will acknowledge that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island, including the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwe peoples, and on the lands connected with the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to our society. I'll begin with the adoption of the agenda. We have a couple of amendments to the agenda. We are removing item 5.1, which is the deputation by the Blue Mountain Snowdrifters Snowmobile Club. We are adding item 9.3, which is under departmental updates. It will be the introduction of the Unity Collective. I believe those were the, and with the committee's indulgence, I would like to move an item as well up into the deputation area. We're going to hear from the chair of the BIA. And I thought it might be polite to allow him to do his presentation a little earlier in the meeting rather than later. And so we'll be inviting Dave Koning to join us during item 5, which is the deputations, if that's all right with everybody in this committee. Okay, and so with that, moved by Councillor Comey and seconded by Mayor Saunderson, that the contents of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee agenda for November the 30th be adopted as amended, and all those in favor? That moves unanimously. So we move on to business arising from the previous minutes. Do we have any business arising from the previous minutes? Seeing none, we have declarations of pecuniary interest and okay, there's one right now. Member Berman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 9.1, the YMCA funding request. My wife and now my daughter work for the Y in various capacities, and I've already filed the paperwork with the clerk's office. Oh, you're muted.
Terrific, and thank you. Are there any other declarations of pecuniary interest? If one dawns on you through the course of the meeting, please let us know as soon as it comes to you. Item number 5, deputations. So we had one deputation, as noted earlier. We're removing that, but we are going to invite the chair of the BIA, Dave Koning, to join us. I believe he is in the waiting room, or he's coming in. Clerk Almas. Go.
Certainly, through chair, we are inviting him into the meeting now. And he should be here.
Wonderful. I can see his name on my screen. I just don't see any video, and I think his mic is muted. There we are. Dave, can you hear us?
I can. I don't see myself, but I don't need to.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We've moved you up in the agenda so that you can be on your way sooner this evening. Oh, there you are. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. And I do have a slide presentation to accompany the deputation. There we are. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mayor Saunderson, Deputy Mayor Hall, Chair McLeod, and Council to give me the opportunity to fill you in on the BIA's plans for the holiday season downtown. I'd like to just start by saying that last year, the BIA Board of Directors worked on a strategic plan which resulted in a restructuring of the board to improve efforts toward our core responsibilities as outlined in the OBIAA handbook. Those being beautification and promotion of the downtown. And it is my impression that with the welcomed assistance and guidance of Clerk Almas and General Manager Nicholson, we have in place an energetic and action-focused board. This Christmas downtown is very different from past years due to the necessary safety measures and restrictions brought on by the COVID pandemic. Everyone would like to have a Santa parade, but we simply cannot have an event that lines our neighbors up shoulder to shoulder on the street. Slide, please. Instead, we have invested to light up the downtown and introduce events and initiatives intended to keep people moving throughout the area and celebrate the season with safety in mind. Thanks to the members of our Promotion Advisory Committee who have worked to promote and market the downtown during these extraordinary times. Thanks to Brandon Houston, Chair, Cassie McKell, and Dr. John Miller for their dedication and planning. Our idea is to bring back the tradition of an outdoor market area, the Collingwood Christmas Market, which will be presented each Friday night in December from 5 to 8 p.m. Slide. The circus company will provide strolling entertainers featuring lighted hula hoops, stilt walkers, and more. The Fleetwood Dance Center will present the Living Windows once again, featuring the dancers performing scenes from the Nutcracker. Santa will be in his sleigh beside the tree for visits that night from 5 to 7, and on Saturdays from 12:30 to 3:30, with the addition of a plexiglass shield to ensure safety for all. Slide. The investment that we've made this year is substantial, more than $85,000. We have been wrapping the trees, as you've seen, with white lights, with more than 500 strings. We have refurbished 36 of the snowflake lighted pole decor, and we now have a total of 73 to supplement our winter banners. New installations of 2 selfie station wreaths, new installations of 4 lighted trees at Town Hall, lighted lanterns adjacent to the Seawood sign, and enhanced lighting of the Christmas tree with beautifully painted presents underneath. Thanks to the decorating committee who planned the installations. Kathy Anderson, Chair, Megan Borofsky, Penny Skelton, with the assistance of BIA member volunteers, Andrea Rinaldo, Margot Nicholson-Trott, and Bradley Green. Slide. We've had a lot of reaction already, positive reaction to the downtown. We were able to secure the lights formerly used on the Bell Media tree in downtown Toronto for our beautiful Christmas tree. We were also able to secure refurbished decor, such as the lighted selfie stations and trees in front of Town Hall, which normally would have been an investment of nearly $70,000. We were able to bring in at $22,000. Slide. The marketing of our downtown. We're using as a destination for holiday shopping. So we've instituted a multimedia campaign plan to build awareness of the downtown businesses. Digitally, we have enhanced investment in social media, including a fun Elf on the Shelf promotion. This elf will visit 24 businesses, one each day, downtown in the windows, and details of that campaign will follow. Regionally, we targeted digital advertising campaign assisted by funding from regional tourism. And we're building a video and photography asset to use in digital and print campaigns this year, and also to have to draw from in the future, again, funded by RTO7. We have an extensive radio promotional campaign targeting regional market, and a direct mail piece. There's a postcard has been mailed to 11,000 households in our area to promote both the Christmas markets and the Shop Your Neighborhood for the Holidays message. Slide. This is the direct mail piece. To all regional households promoting this idea of shopping the neighborhood. And also to encourage local shopping downtown. And on the other side, it promotes the Christmas market. We do have, if we can play them, I hope we can, we have invested in 2 creative videos to be used in social media.
Sorry, through Stephanie, you might need to hit the play button at the bottom.
I think you're right. I think if you hit the play button, perhaps.
Sorry about that. Let me try again.
It's all right. And there is one other, if we can show it. And that is the end of my presentation. I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all. And on behalf of the BIA Board of Directors, I wish everyone a happy holiday.
Thank you so much, Mr. Conning. And I believe we, because this is a report from a board, that we ask for input or for any comment from anyone in the public. Is that correct, please, Clerk Almas?
Chair to the committee, in this case, since it was a community announcement, unless there's anything that the committee would like to add to it, any attendees that are watching, they can speak in the delegation section at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Any comment from members of this committee? Mayor Saunderson.
Well, just to say, I've had a number of emails, Dave, from people downtown commenting on how great the downtown looks this year, and it really looks spectacular. And so congratulations to your committee, your board of directors, and the committee members for all this great work, because it looks fantastic, and it's a year that we very much need some downtown cheer. So thank you for all your hard work.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mayor Saunderson. I'd like to take credit, but I really can't.
Anyone else on the committee? And I too will offer up my thanks. It looks fantastic. It's been very difficult for me to resist taking a selfie when I'm walking my dog in the mornings. So, all right, we will thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll move on in our agenda. So that was actually item 7.4, but we did it during item 5. So we move on to item 6, which is staff reports. And we will begin with Clerk Almas, I believe. This is item 6.1, and we are looking for a staff report on the Line Fences Act.
Certainly. Through the chair to the committee. So I will do a presentation regarding the staff report on opting out of the Line Fences Act. So this actually was spurred by two applications that the town received this year. We determined the process was inherently unfair. The cost and staff time exceeded any sort of benefit, and we'll be going through the details of that throughout this presentation. It's very brief, and the requirements that if you opt out, the items that you do still need to address. So next slide. So the line fences especially refers to fences that are built exactly on a property line. Any owner could move a fence 2 centimeters back from their property line and construct it entirely to their own specification at their own expense. Some form of the act has existed since the 19th century, and the idea that line fences are a joint responsibility long precedes that. It is a provincial act that is administered by municipalities due to the local expertise. The act is really meant to deal with long, often difficult to access rural fences between agricultural properties where both owners see a direct benefit. However, it is applicable to urban areas. So that is a piece of legislation that we will be recommending doing the province review and make changes to. The arbitration procedure is applicable to two situations only, and that's where no fences currently exist at the boundary between the two properties and one owner wants a new fence to be constructed, or where there is a line fence already in existence and one owner believes that it needs to be reconstructed or repaired. So 3 fence viewers are appointed by the town and attend a viewing, hear evidence, and issue an award. Fence viewers prepare a copy of the award confirming the type of fence to be built, and that includes a number of items such as the material, the height, the length, the color, as well as they are responsible for apportioning the cost. A decision is binding that can be appealed to the provincial referee. And the apportionment of costs, I'll just briefly speak to that, is based on an understanding of 50-50, unless there is some significant or extenuating circumstance that would allow otherwise. However, it is an expectation that it should be awarded 50-50. So for the town's purposes, our fence viewers are currently members of the Committee of Adjustment. So the Committee of Adjustment members are also our Property Standards Committee and are responsible for fence viewing when that occurs. Next slide. Non-application of the Act. The Line Fences Act 1990 is a statutory piece of legislation that all municipalities are bound by unless they expressly opt out of passing of the bylaw. Any application received under the Act must be processed by the town and proceedings initiated. Informal resolution is strongly encouraged, but if no agreement is reached, a viewing must take place. Municipalities must create their own procedures for line fence disputes or opting out of the Act entirely under subsection 98(1) or 2 of the Municipal Act. Next slides. The reason for opting out, as I mentioned earlier, Collingwood is predominantly an urban municipality, and the Act is largely intended to solve disputes for rural properties where line fences can be long and difficult to maintain. Applications under the Act are very rare. So for the town of Collingwood, actually in my 16 years being with the municipality, we have not received one line fence application. In this August, we received 2. One of the applications was resolved without proceeding to a formal fence viewing, and one did proceed with a fence viewing, full application and apportionment and award. The cost of administering the Act by the town greatly exceeds any benefit that can be derived from offering it as a service. Parties may not agree in the requirement of a line fence or have the available resources for the financial obligation that would come out of an award for a Line Fences Act. And it's clearly a frustration for the property owners involved in a line fence dispute. And a reason for opting out also provides clear, consistent rules for line fences in Collingwood. Installation of a line fence would be identical to the construction of a fence entirely on one's own property. Next slide. So the proposal, which we are putting forward, amends the fence bylaw that we currently have in place. So that's bylaw 2013-046 to state that the Lines Fences Act does not apply to the town with the exception of section 20 that pertains to former railway lands. And that is actually a requirement under the legislation that you can't opt out of these fence provisions if they abut a railway land. And any property owners desiring a line fence would be 100% responsible for the construction and repair of a fence unless otherwise agreed upon with their neighbors. So we still have to provide an apportionment of cost, even though we're opting out. That is a requirement of the Act. And staff believe that it is valuable that if one property owner requires a fence, that it would be at 100% their cost. As I indicated in the presentation, anybody can construct a fence, even if it's centimeters off the boundary line at their own expense. And that is it. So if there is any questions, we can see if there is anybody in the audience that wants to speak before we address comments from the committee. All right. So what I'll do, I know we have a few participants in the meeting.
Yeah.
If you're wishing to speak to this matter, please press the raise your hand feature or press *9 if you wish to speak to this matter. We have one participant that would like to address this application, and we will allow them to talk. I believe it is Matthew Pretty.
Thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
And *6 feature will unmute.
Yes. Hello, friends. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is just a quick one to the chair. Councillor McLeod, if you could reallow me into the Zoom meeting, please. I've been preparing for this one tonight as of Wednesday. Your tech support, if you could let me re-sign. This is very difficult with this Zoom meeting strategy. Any fence line that goes up, I think we need to consult both the homeowners and obviously the municipality has a 10-meter buffer zone. The new trees along here in Ontario, for example, look great. That's probably around 10 meters. I would have to say, in some instances at corners, not to plant too much landscaping. I know there's always the interest to do a lot of landscaping to beautify and make habitat for wildlife, as I'd like to comment tonight on another note, but to try and resist too much low bushes and flowers and grasses, short grasses is probably the best way to go. Over to you, Chair McLeod.
Thanks so much for your input, Matt. Anyone else in the audience who wants to weigh in on the topic before us?
It doesn't appear so.
All right, so I'll read in the motion and then we'll hear from our council members, and that is that moved by member Saunderson and seconded by member Madigan, that staff report C 2020-14 non-application of the Line Fences Act 1990 bylaw be received, and that council enact and pass a bylaw for the town of Collingwood to, quote, opt out, close quote, of the application of the Line Fences Act SO 1990. Any comments or questions from this committee? Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Clerk Almas. Just as I understand this, Sarah, we've got a very old piece of legislation that looks like it was directed primarily at rural environments, and but the way the legislation is drafted, it can apply to urban municipalities. And while a number of other municipalities have opted out, we haven't, and partly because we haven't had much reason to be involved in these disputes, but we have recently had two. So we're opting out under the provisions of the Municipal Act and leaving it so that would really be an issue between the two neighbors. And that unless they can come to an agreement, if one wants the fence and one doesn't, then the one who wants the fence will be responsible for constructing the fence on their side of the lot line at 100% their cost.
That's correct.
So we're hoping to add some clarity then for our residents to either try to resolve it themselves, or if one feels very strongly that they can do it on their own dime.
Sarah?
Through,
Yeah.
through the
Okay,
chair
great.
to Mayor
Thanks very much.
Swanson and the committee. So I'll just briefly add to that through the chair. It is an unknown piece of legislation to many municipalities. Ones that received applications, again, that seems to be how it is brought forward. This is something that I will be bringing to the association because it is not a fair process as we've experienced, and it is a frustration for residents that have to go through this. Again, if they don't particularly see the need, number one, for a fence or have the financial ability to even pay for it. So if you do not opt out of the process in advance of receiving an application, you are obliged to carry on with the application, or you will be held liable by the applicant for not proceeding with the application. And again, the process is very prescriptive through the Act, including requirements for notice provision, as well as addressing an application within 30 days upon receipt.
Mayor Saunderson, does that assist?
It does. Thank you very much. And then just Clerk Thomas, I think at 11.3 of the bylaw, there was a typo in there, and you might just want to look at that. I think it means the fence shall comply with the provisions, but it says compliance. So maybe just check that wording. But thank you for those answers. That's extremely helpful.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to thank you, Clerk Almas, for taking this, and I think it's an unfortunate situation that that brought this to our attention, and so hopefully this will prevent this from happening again to some other homeowner. And I'm very disappointed in the mayor that he didn't quote Robert Frost when someone is there who does not want a fence that wants it down. I'm disappointed. All right, thank you. So I'll call the question then on receiving this report. All those in favor? And that carries. To the next item, which is 6.2, the interim property tax levy, and I'll call on our treasurer, Mike Switzer, to talk to us about this. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Through the chair to the committee, I'll be speaking to the property tax levy staff report. This is a standard annual bylaw that is brought forward to establish the rates and due dates for the subsequent year's interim tax levy. Section 317 of the Municipal Act specifies the rules for calculating the levy, which is limited to 50% of the total amount of annualized taxes for the previous year. Tax notices must be sent out must be sent out 21 days before any taxes are due. The two interim tax levy installments are set for February 19th, 2021 and May 21st, 2021. And we anticipate the interim tax bills will be sent out in mid-January to provide this sufficient notice. The interim tax levy provides sufficient cash flow for the town to pay its obligations until the final levy for 2021 is processed. The town has an obligation as well to provide for both the county and school board with their respective portion of the interim tax amounts. The interim levy, will raise approximately $32.3 million in the two installments. Of this, the town portion will be approximately $18.3 million, the county portion $7.1 million, and the education portion $6.9 million. And that is just my presentation for this. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Switzer. Any member of the public who would like to weigh in on this?
To any of our attendees watching, again, if you wish to participate, please press the raise your hand button or hit *9. And it doesn't appear that anybody wishes to speak to this item.
And so I'll read in the motion, which is moved by Councillor Madigan and seconded by Councillor Berman, that staff report T 2020-15 interim property tax levy be received, and that council enact and pass a bylaw to establish the rates and due dates for the 2021 interim tax levy. Any members of the committee have anything to say on this issue? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. And just a point of clarification, am I supposed to be calling a vote on these bylaws, or does that, they don't come up for a vote until we go to council?
That's correct. The bylaw will come up during our council meeting on December the 14th.
Super, thank you so much. And then we move on to item T 2020-16, the temporary borrowing bylaw. And I believe this is also a housekeeping matter for Treasurer Switzer.
That's correct. Through you, Chair. Another standard report that we bring forward every year. This bylaw establishes the town's temporary credit facility should the need ever arise. The bylaw is presented to council again to authorize the use of the open and revolving credit facilities totaling $6 million offered by the National Bank. National Bank also requires this bylaw on an annual basis to authorize these credit facilities. Section 407 of the Municipal Act specifies for the total amount of the borrowing. The maximum amount that can be borrowed between January 1st and September 30th is $29.8 million. And between October 1st and December 31st is 14 million. So as you can tell, we're well below that. And we do not anticipate any need for this credit facility in 2021. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Treasurer Switzer. Anyone in the audience who has a question for the Treasurer regarding the staff report?
Have Matthew Pretty would like to speak to this.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm just reading the agenda here. Staff report, temporary borrowing bylaw for 2021. What type of items could, or what type of business purpose and municipal purpose could the $6 million go towards? Are we talking trails, wildlife protection, the docks, the elevator, lighting, snow removal, sand, salt, facilities? Who could access this money? Thank you.
Treasurer Switzer?
Through the chair, these funds would not be used for those sort of projects. These funds are temporary borrowing should the need ever arise, i.e. there isn't sufficient cash within the town's bank account to fund operations. The purpose of this credit facility is to provide cash should that need ever arise. Again, given the current amount of funds that the town has, I don't anticipate any need for these funds.
There we go. Thank you, Matt, for your question. All right, and we will move on to the motion, which is moved by Councillor Berman and seconded by Councillor Comey, that staff report 2020-16 temporary borrowing bylaw be received, and that council enact and pass a bylaw establishing the 2021 temporary borrowing bylaw or borrowing facility for the town of Collingwood at $6 million. Any member of the committee wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Treasurer Switzer, for your time this evening.
Thank you.
This brings us to item 7, which is reports and minutes of other committees and boards. And we have moved by Councillor Comey and seconded by Mayor Saunderson that the minutes of the various committees and boards provided be received and recommendations contained therein be approved. We've got the Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes from November 3rd, a special meeting. We have a regular meeting of the Downtown BIA Board of Management, November 12th, 2020. 7.2 is the Museum Advisory Committee minutes on November 19th, 2020. And 7.3 Trails and Active Transportation Advisory Committee minutes from November the 12th of 2020. Any members of this committee have things they want to say regarding any of these minutes? And so I'll call the question. All those in favor of receiving these minutes? And that passes unanimously as well, which brings us to the consent agenda. And that is, and it is moved by Mayor Saunderson and seconded by Councillor Madigan that the general consent agenda, having been given due consideration by the standing committee, be received. We have item 8.1, Township of Amaranth, changes to the municipal elections in Bill 218, 8.2, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the National Disaster Mitigation Program, intake 6. We have item 8.3, Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, support for Waste Reduction Week 2020. 8.4, Georgian Bay Forever, update on 2 microfiber plastic programs being delivered in Collingwood. We have a letter, 8.5, Christiane Banfield, regarding snowmobiles on town of Collingwood trails, and item 8.6, which is from the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, a letter regarding restrictions on access to recreational facilities in Simcoe Muskoka. Now, item 8.6 has a motion that goes with it. So I'm looking to the clerk to see if we need to deal with that separately from the previous items, and that is correct, isn't it?
Through the chair, yes, we should receive all of them together and then separate that motion out.
Okay, so we're receiving all of them. Do I have to read the whole darn thing right now?
Nope, I think you went through it good.
Okay, great, thank you. So any of these items would like to be commented on by members of this committee? Councillor Comey.
I did it on the new laptop. Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. Just a quick question, please, with regards to the letter from Ms. Banfield. I suppose through you to Director Culver or perhaps Clerk Almas, could you just kindly advise if we've been able to respond to this letter with these questions about snowmobiles on the trail?
Clerk Almas?
Certainly, I think Director Culver is available and could address that.
Dean.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we haven't, I don't, to be honest with you, we had a few letters, so I have to check and make sure that we've responded to this one specifically. But if the committee felt like they wanted to indulge me, I would like to sort of share some information with the committee that would be a response to this letter and others if the committee so wanted that.
I'm making an executive decision for the executive director, and you may speak.
Okay. So so this is, we've received, I think, maybe 3, and I'm not, maybe there may have been a 4th one, letter of concern from the public regarding snowmobiles, because that we've begun to put up the trail marker signs that indicate which routes are snowmobile routes in the community. So each year we have, some complaints that come in. I will agree that over the past couple of years, they've become a little bit more concerned. So we've been working very closely with the OPP and the Snowdrifters, which are an OFSC local affiliate, to try and work on some regulation and improvements that will help improve safety on the trail. So I have some notes here. If you will just bear with me, I'll go as quickly as I can through it. But a lot of people don't know or remember or know that the Collingwood Trails were actually initially established to support the movement of snowmobiles way back in the day. This was actually George Christie's first initiative as a trails person, which then became his vision for pedestrian and cycle traffic occupying the trails as well. So that's why actually our Collingwood Trails exist in their origin. But really why they exist is because they actually provide access for the trails to get out to the county network. So they're not really routes within themselves. They're actually just conveyances to get people from their homes out to the larger network. Certainly some people have abused that and they've created their own recreational routing in the town. And this is a problem and something that we need to work on. So the Blue Mountain Snowdrifters, I mentioned, is the local affiliate of the OFSC, the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs. The OFSC actually permits access to their trails, the trails that they manage out actually across Ontario. If you don't have a permit, you can actually be charged with trespassing. And so we have worked with the OFSC and through the Snowdrifters to consider the idea of the town trails becoming OFSC trails for 2 reasons. One is because that would allow the OPP to actually issue a trespass notice if they're on the trails when the OFSC trails have been quote unquote turned off. And the second thing that that might allow us to do is allow us to communicate better with the OFSC members. We also, so our trails right now as they exist, because they're conveyances to get to the OFSC trails, are effectively out of service when the OFSC trails are turned off. And you go to all snowmobilers are supposed to go to the website, check and see what routes are open or not. If they're not open, they don't go out. we're struggling a little bit with what I would call a few bad actors, people who may or may not have permits, who use our trail as routes, and who don't observe things like speed limits and don't observe the pedestrian priority. One of the things that's a challenge when we talk about turning off the idea of snowmobiles in our community, and by the way, we have spent every one of my 6 years looking at alternative routes. We have every year gone and said, where else could they go? But as the town density expands, there really is nowhere else for them to go and to provide a straightforward access to the network of regional trails. But there is a benefit, and one of the large benefits over and above, the club does do litter pickup, they do some repairs, they do a lot of things that are, in their interest, but also in the interest of the broader community. But the biggest thing they do is they actually groom the trails. So without the snowmobiles being on the trails, pedestrians probably would not be able to access them. In our normal snow conditions, and we see this on trails that are not groomed by either the town or the snowmobile club, we see, what you get is frozen footsteps and uneven ground and nobody on those trails because it's impossible really to navigate them safely. So that's a huge benefit. And we do groom some trails on our own, and we see the increase in use. Like for the last 2 years, we've been grooming trails. We groomed a portion of the Georgian Trail last year, and this year we're actually working with the town of Blue Mountains to coordinate for a larger Georgian Trail push, because we know that people are going to want to be on the trails. And last year we saw a great uptick in traffic based on the surfaces being more even. So without the snowmobiles, we're only limited to what the town can do, which is not much. So that's just something to keep in mind. None of what I've said before, sort of, supporting snowmobiling, flies in the face of understanding that there are risks. This is a machine in a place where pedestrians usually would like to be. And we don't see it as a whole lot different than the way we're managing bicycles. Bicycles on trails have been in conflict with pedestrians over the years, and we've worked through etiquette rules and communication to get cyclists to slow down, to move over, and even to leave the trail, move off the trail to allow for pedestrians by creating a hierarchy. The Trails Committee has been a part of this communication. You'll note the signs that dot our trail system that talk about please stay to the right. They talk about sound a bell, and they talk about the right or the priority of pedestrians over really anything else on the trail. Pedestrians have the highest priority. So this is the approach that we're working to take with the snowdrifters. So we're working with them on some large-scale signage on the snowmobile routes to indicate that they need to move off the trail if they encounter a pedestrian. Let the pedestrian have the trail that was groomed for them, but it definitely needs to be prioritized for pedestrians. And other initiatives like that. I'll cut it off because I don't want to run on too long, but I also want to let you know that we're working with the OPP to enforce zero tolerance of abuse of the trail rules as well. They've been great to work with over the last couple of years, and we look forward to continuing to kind of crack down on those who violate the rules that are imposed by both the town and the OFSC. So with that, I just thought it would be good to give the committee an update as to staff isn't sort of sitting still. We'll definitely make sure that all the letters are responded to, but we thought it was a good opportunity to sort of just bring you up to speed with where we are and what we're working on.
Thank you, Executive Director Culver. Does that assist, Vice Chair Comey?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and through you, Executive Director Culver. That was a great update. There's just one thought I'd like to share is, we see in Ms. Banfield's letter, she points out the student use, and it just made me think what an outstanding job the town did early during the back to school days about active transportation and slowing down in the community. It was really outstanding. Maybe some thought could be dedicated to any messaging that could reach the schools to remind the students that they are multi-use trails, and maybe they can, best they can, give themselves a little heads up. I don't know how often they intersect school and back to school and snowmobiles. I'm not privy to that, but it was just a thought that in the past it's been done so well. So thank you again.
Yeah. So just quickly through you, Chair, absolutely, this is a great idea. School students do use the groomed trails provided by snowmobiles to access school routes. So we definitely want to make sure that students are safe. More importantly, we need to make sure that the snowmobilers who are out, they're not often out when the school kids are on the trail, but when they are, and if they are, that they move off the trail to allow safe passage for the students.
Super awesome. Thanks so much.
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? All right, and I have one, and I just like to say to Executive Director Culver that I am one of the beneficiaries of that inadvertent grooming that takes place at the hands or the real rails of the snowmobilers, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you very much for what you had to say. And so with that, we will move to accept items number 8.1 through 8.5 of our consent agenda. All of those in favor? That carries unanimously, which brings us to item 8.6 from the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, the letter restrictions on access to recreational facilities in Simcoe Muskoka, and it is moved by Mayor Saunderson and seconded by Councillor Madigan. Whereas the province of Ontario launched the COVID-19 response framework, Keeping Ontario Safe and Open, which categorizes public health unit regions into 5 levels: green, prevent; yellow, protect; orange, restrict; red, control; and gray, lockdown, being a measure of last and urgent resort. And whereas the COVID-19 response framework strongly recommends individuals and families in higher transmission areas should avoid travel to lower transmission areas, and whereas Dr. Gardner's letter to all Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit municipalities strongly recommends prohibiting access to their recreational facilities to individuals whose primary residence lies within the red, control, or gray lockdown areas. And whereas Council delegated authority to the CIO during the COVID-19 pandemic for matters deemed necessary, be it resolved that Council endorse CIO Skinner's direction that town-owned recreational facilities permit bookings and use of its facilities only by Ontario residents whose primary address is within the same or lower level than Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, which is currently orange restrict. Do we have any conversation on this item from members of this committee? CIO Skinner, would you like to speak to this at all?
Thank you, Chair McLeod. Just briefly through you to all the members of the committee. This is one where it's not a regulatory requirement from Dr. Gardner in the health unit. It's one where he strongly recommended to all of the municipalities that we do this. And looking at the numbers that the pandemic has currently produced, and in conversation with our recreation staff, we figured out that we can do this. There are processes where we've switched to a phone registration instead of online registration, so that we can ask people some questions before they register or as they register, and follow up if we need to, that this is the right thing to do at this time. And while I have the authority to do this and have already put it in place with the pandemic powers delegated to me, it is always best that the committee and council weigh in where possible. And today I would ask you to endorse this temporary restriction until such time as Dr. Gardner gives us alternate advice or something changes with respect to the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, CIO Skinner. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And there's your endorsement, CIO Skinner. So we move on now to item number 9, and we have actually 3 items here. We've added, of course, 9.3 as discussed earlier, which is the introduction of the Unity Collective, but we'll begin with item 9.1, which is the YMCA funding request update. And I'll turn to Executive Director Culver, and I will excuse, oh, he's already gone, Councillor Berman from the room. Executive Director Culver.
Thank you. I just need to find my notes. Sorry.
When our iPads move to a 6-digit security, it takes me longer too. Don't worry.
I'm sorry. Very sorry. I'm just when I turned my microphone on, the notes went away. There they are. Okay, sorry. So I did circulate an email to council members regarding the presentation by the YMCA, and this update really is to kind of come full circle for the sake of the public, and in case there's any questions. regarding response to the YMCA for the funding request. So the first thing we did was reached out to the YMCA management, and the first thing I would like to say actually is that staff, or PRC staff, and I think town staff are highly respectful of the work that the YMCA does as a social service organization benefiting our community. They provide support for such entities as the Children's Treatment Network, cardiovascular rehab, and the pulmonary rehab programs offered by CGNH. And they also offer affordable access to recreation through membership subsidies and support programs. So we tried as best we could to find a way to be supportive of the recommendation in responding to their funding request. However, and I want to say that YMCA management is aware of this. The primary needs of the YMCA in the short term are related to the restoration of their services as a fitness facility. And so the funding that the council would be approving would be directed at that effort. And that would be contradictory to where the town feels its position is relative to private enterprise and the role of municipality in supporting that. So at this time, we're not able to provide a recommendation that supports the request. But what we have committed to do is stay engaged with the YMCA. And if there is a social service support program that is at risk, we'd like to know about it and see if there is a way that the town can assist. That may be in kind, it may be in a small way, but we're looking to try and do what we can to support that aspect of the YMCA. Because again, we understand that that's really valuable in our community. It also lives more within the municipality's mandate. So I don't want to go belabor it, but hopefully if you have any questions, I'd happy to answer them, but hopefully that's understood.
Thank you, Executive Director Culver. Are there any questions from members of this committee regarding this? All right then. Thank you very much. And we will invite Councillor Berman back into today's meeting. And we'll move on to item 9.2, which is the community garden update. And we will look again to Executive Director Culver.
And I get to look over to Jennifer Parker, who's joining us, because that's what you have staff for. And Jennifer is all prepared to provide an update.
Welcome, Ms. Parker.
Good evening, and Lauren Jeffrey will also be joining me this evening. So this year, PRC was able to pilot our first community garden initiative at Heritage Park, and this project was a huge success as a result of the support and dedication of our community partners. And with this, I'd like to introduce you to Lauren Jeffrey, who is from Catalpa Community Support Services, and she'll provide an overview using our infographic of the key successes of our first ever community garden project. So I believe we have that infographic. Could that be shared up on the screen?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Mayor Saunderson and Madam Chair McLeod and rest of council for having me here today. Jennifer and I just did this presentation to the community roundtable the other day, so it's great to bring it to this committee as well to share the successes that we had over the course of our first ever community garden project here in Collingwood. So this infographic really speaks to what we were able to accomplish over the gardening season starting back in 2019 this summer. So I'm just going to simply follow along the lines there and just speak to all the little circles that you may be able to zoom in on there. So so in the summer of 2019, Jennifer and through the town of Collingwood and myself through the Community Action Program for Children and the Canada Prenatal Nutrition Program and the Environment Network here in Collingwood all came together and we started a deep paving project at Heritage Park. Literally, we ripped up the land there and the pavement, and we made room for 11 community garden boxes that housed our vegetables and our produce throughout the course of this season. So it takes us to fall 2019, where we called upon the Collingwood Blues team. So again, really engaging the community in this project. We all came together. We filled these beautiful garden boxes that were built by students at CCI with soil, and we were ready to start our planting in the spring of 2020. So 2020 came along, and we came across COVID, and Jennifer and the town really came together to come up with these guidelines and policies and procedures that would allow us to be at this community garden and help support not only the mums in our project through CAPC and CPMP, but also the rest of the community as well. So going along, the second little bubble beside spring of 2020, if you can zoom in there, I know it's probably not possible through this platform, but you'll be able to see that there's laminated papers there that have what we are growing in each garden plot. Because people were walking by through the dog park at Heritage Park there, and just in the rest of the community using the green space in that area. And we're asking questions. And even though it was a fenced in area, people were really interested in what we were doing. So we incorporated this piece into our garden where, as I said, we had what we were growing, the names of it, creating that literacy piece for families as well. And when we weren't there, people knew what we were growing. So going along, we had 11 beds, as I said. One of the beds was a pollinator garden through Pollinate Collingwood, which was in support of the David Suzuki Foundation through the Butterfly Way project. So this pollinator garden was in the middle of all of those garden beds, and it really served to be well through helping support all of our growth. Just moving along there, it's a beautiful photo of children washing the carrots that they had just pulled from the ground through the rain barrels that the town had supported as well. And then there's some photos of our produce that we were able to grow and eventually harvest. And as it says on the bottom row there, some of the community garden harvest over the 19-week growing period. So we were able to really capitalize on a great summer. There was a lot of heat, some rain, but we all really came together and really made these garden beds really successful. So scrolling down a bit, it lists all the great community project or partners that were involved. And I think these numbers along the bottom here really capture what we were able to accomplish over these 19 weeks. So just starting on the left-hand side, 101 CAPC participant visits were able to come to the garden. We met twice a week there with our mums. Our mums in our CAPC CPMP project are all of low income and are deemed at risk of some sort. So low education, teen pregnancy, new to Canada, socially isolated. So really getting them out of the house, engaging the best they could during these COVID times. And with these 101 visits to the garden came along 117 child visits. So down further in the slides, you'll see one of my favorite photos is a child really, I mean, she's really engaged in the garden, and that's what we really wanted to create here is just, our goal was to introduce and educate and enhance what mothers and children already knew. So we had this idea halfway through the season that we would start to include the residents over at the County of Simcoe housing buildings right across the street from Heritage Park. So what we did every Wednesday is the excess harvest that we grew As you'll see in the next bubble beside that, 1,256 food servings were harvested and distributed over the course of those 19 weeks. And every Wednesday, we would take this produce across the street, already portioned off into serving sizes, and we would give those to the residents in the social housing buildings there. So not only children and moms and families, but also seniors came out too. So yeah, it was really, really neat to see this community engagement. The last bubble I have there on the right is 5 CAPC moms who are working towards their high school credits. So Heritage Park, we were very fortunate to have the social housing buildings across the way there, but within those buildings, there's also the Learning Center. So that's the Collingwood branch of the Learning Center. Teachers would come across the street, they'd engage with moms who would like to continue their education. So many moms in our program are so close to getting their high school credits, 1 or 2 credits away, and life has happened and they've had children, they've had to go into the workforce, and they were able to work towards their high school credits while attending this garden as well. So they were able to get their food and nutrition credits, their parenting credits, other health credits that the school board offers. And I'm really, really pleased to say that one of our mothers that was attending the garden, she graduated from high school and is now going on to her RPN course starting in January for with Georgian College. So, and I mean, every little bit really helps, and just them being engaged in this garden, them there with their children seeing what their moms can accomplish is really heartwarming. So down on the second page of this infographic, we gather a lot of testimonials. Our project is funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada, the County of Simcoe, and other private donors and service clubs in our area. So we are a nationwide project, and these testimonials really, really help enhance our funding and what we are trying to do. So I think some of the really big pieces that I'm going to pull out of there is gardening is so therapeutic. We invited our food worker. We have funding through the County of Simcoe to hire a food worker. So she came across the street to the social housing buildings in August on a weekly basis, and she would demonstrate to the residents there how to chop a tomato, how to prepare Swiss chard wraps, and introducing them to new variety of produce that really enhanced their lives as well. So it was neat to see that some of the residents didn't know how to chop an onion or a garlic before. And something that really sticks out in my mind is a gentleman, we had yellow tomatoes there, and he said, "When did you start making these?" So it's just really bringing that awareness to the community and to everyone that we were able to provide those supports to. So if it wasn't for this garden, I would never leave my house. Residents really, and moms of our programs really looked forward to every Wednesday and Friday of just getting out of the house. And as I said, really enhancing their knowledge with produce and the act of gardening in itself. So trying to teach residents and young moms how to grow their own food, and that not only enhances their knowledge, but it spills over to their children as well. So, and then just down at the bottom there, this project was in support of the Ontario Trillium Foundation and all the other wonderful sponsors and contributors to this project. You can see that we had quite a few people involved, and it really speaks to the community engagement that we were able to capture here at Heritage Park. So thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me along, and to Council for allowing me to share this great success that we were able to have over those 19 weeks. And we hope to continue this for many years to come.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffrey. Anything further, Ms. Parker?
No, that Lauren has done an amazing job capturing the accomplishments that we have had over the summer, and I look to the committee if there are any questions.
Committee members, any questions either for Ms. Jeffrey or Ms. Parker? Mayor Saunderson.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jennifer and Lauren, for that great presentation. I'm wondering if people are interested, how do they go about getting involved with the garden?
Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah. Jennifer.
So in consequence of the circumstances as related to COVID this year, we focused the garden specifically on the CAP-C and the CAP-CNP programs, and that allowed for us to control the numbers of participants coming into the garden following those public health guidelines. We will have to explore as we move into next year what our new circumstances will look like and how we can share our learnings, as well as invite others into that space, potentially looking at other school collaborations and so on and so forth. But again, given the limitations that happened as a result of COVID, we really narrowed our focus this year.
Well, let's hope we can open it up in the future. And just, I guess, as a follow-up then, Madam Chair, the 11 beds that we have, does that use up all the available space there, or is there a possibility of expanding the program?
Ms. Parker?
Yeah, so the 11 beds do take up a fair amount of space. There are some pockets within the garden, and we're always looking for opportunities to expand and grow in different ways. So by adding things along our fence lines or looking at other locations in the community, this created a manageable space. And even with those 11 beds, it was amazing the amount of produce that we're able to harvest and manage in this space for sure.
Anything further, Mayor Saunderson?
Nope, just wonderful job. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Anyone else from the committee? Vice Chair Comey.
Thanks so much, Madam Chair. Through you, just to touch on what the Mayor Saunderson said, just thank you both so much. What an incredible story from those 11 little beds. Those numbers are phenomenal, and those comments are truly heartwarming. So thank you to you and all your supporters and volunteers. What a beautiful story, you know, on the eve of a blizzard. We just, a little reminder, and in the midst of a pandemic, for you to assist in getting that quality nutrition out to some families that might need it potentially the most. Thank you so much for keeping our, you know, our community health needs at the forefront.
And for my part, I'm glad you didn't grow zucchini, because we're all afraid of people who grow zucchini and then sneak it into our cars when we finish visiting them in the end of summer. Thank you very much, ladies. That brings us to item 9.3, which is I want to make sure that I get this correct, the introduction of the Unity Collective. This is a word I haven't heard before, and I'm going to hear all about it from Executive Director Culver. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Again, I have notes, and I'm going to actually try and read these, but I think things will go quicker than my normal stumbly responses. So through Council's receipt and endorsement of a staff report delivered in July, you supported and encouraged staff to facilitate the establishment of a representative body of the community that would consult and advise to determine constructive actions that will acknowledge and empower the strength of a diverse community. That last part was in quotation marks you couldn't see. Further to that, the report indicated that in order to ensure that privilege doesn't interfere with the progress or intent of the body, they'll work at arm's length from Council, but bring matters before Council to be debated, implemented, or discussed. So I'm very pleased now that the time has come to announce the presence of the group whose membership has worked since early October to establish their forward path and agree on what would be effective actions to turn Collingwood into the most inclusive community on earth. They've adopted the name Unity Collective for a number of reasons. The Unity word sprang from a discussion on the idea that an infinitely diverse population represents a huge amount of community potential, but the unification and celebration of all its unique cultural parts will provide the strength that sees our community realize that potential. The word collective felt more inviting and open than group or committee, and the Unity Collective seeks to be open and inviting. It's also been discussed that a logo or graphic symbol of the group should contain a circle, as in Indigenous tradition, the circle represents the collection and continuity of all living things. Certainly, there are about 60. Currently, there are about 16 members, such as, and I'm just going to provide a bit of a sample. Local creative maker Brenda Miller, who spoke at one of the Black Lives Matter protests this past summer. Brenda has been envisioning a community story map with physical locations identified as significant to Collingwood Black history. The collective has indicated support for this and would like to work with her to see the idea become a reality. Jeffrey Smith currently lives in Kingston, but grew up and spent most of his years in Collingwood. He maintains a deep affinity and alignment with the Black heritage of the region and is the current chair of the Owen Sound Emancipation Festival, the longest running emancipation event in North America at 158 years. Jeff has shared his own experiences in Collingwood from a time when the Black neighborhoods of Collingwood were known, as many in Canada were known, by a racial epithet that was uttered seemingly jokingly at the time, but with systemic effects that resonate today. Carolyn and Sylvia Wilson operate the Sheffield Park Black History Museum, which I highly recommend that you visit as soon as it's possible following the pandemic, if you haven't already, and have deep ancestral ties to the Black history of Collingwood. They were recently honored as companions to the Order of Collingwood after receiving their Order of Collingwood Award in 1987. These sisters have experienced the gamut of emotions related to the Black experience in Collingwood. Through the collective short existence, they have contributed constructive advice and observation regarding what an inclusive community truly is. Gillian Morris served 13 years with the Department of National Defence and co-chaired the Defence Aboriginal Advisory Board for a decade. She left public service in 2019 to devote time to Indigenous-led initiatives and has worked as a researcher, guest speaker, and advisor. Gillian is a member of the Feather Carriers Leadership for Life Promotion Advisory Board, which is a cultural-based organization working to support those at risk of premature death. Gillian has focused on redressing history and healing communities, which makes her an incredibly valuable member of the collective. There are many other members who will be introduced to you over time, including real estate professional Marcia Alderson, our very famous area musician and creator, Bamalam Kid, the general manager of the YMCA in Collingwood and Wasaga Beach, Nalusha Primasing. But I didn't want to shorten this update without letting you know about youth involvement. Lee Pankhurst is the manager of the Collingwood Youth Center and a member of the Unity Collective. Aside from being a promoter of youth and advocate in the fight against youth homelessness and marginalization, Lee has also engaged individuals within the center to participate in the collective. It's been amazing to watch them gain the respect of adults in the room and assert their own knowledge. The collective has asserted that anti-racism will be a multi-generational effort and ardently supports the involvement of youth at the meetings. Among the youth members that have participated to date, we've enjoyed input from Emelina McDonald, Anisha Ben-Sira, and John Hardillo. On behalf of the Unity Collective, we'd like to express appreciation to Collingwood for allowing this facilitation to occur, for the support of the initiatives that acknowledge the challenges in front of us and the challenges yet to come, and for the future support we'll need if we're able to make real change happen in our community. The collective begins work tomorrow on a visioning exercise that will help to create a future view of Collingwood that understands its complex history, is free from racism, full of understanding, welcoming to all, and in fact celebrates the strength of community that comes from the sum of all of its parts. And that was my introduction of the Unity Collective. You'll hear more from them in upcoming meetings for sure.
Thank you, Executive Director Culver. Any questions or comments from members of this committee? Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Executive Director Culver and to all of your committee, Dean. I had the pleasure of attending one of the meetings, and it was really an incredible process to be part of what was going on in that room. And there's a wonderful breadth of experience and perspective in that room, things that we need to hear. And I can't think of a better group of people to bring that conversation to us as a council and as a community. So it's great to hear that. Certainly when we talked about this idea and going right back to speaking with Senator Glenn Boniface, this was, the hope. And so it's great to see it coming to fruition. So thank you for that. And please pass on our regards to the committee.
Definitely.
Any other member of this committee? I have one question for you, Executive Director Culver, and that is, could you please explain to me the difference between a collective and a committee?
Thank you. Yes, actually, that's a really good thing to explain. So we were avoiding, group sounded very closed. And committee is reflective of branches of council governance that, like advisory committees, the Trails Committee, things like that, which have, let's just say, council governance sort of embedded within them. And that can be problematic if we want to take an objective view of things like systemic racism. In other words, if you create an entity that is embedded within the system, potentially you don't notice the systemic parts that would need to be changed. So it was really important that the committee, the group, which now is known as the collective, have an objective view in order to be able to provide good advice. And I will say, as of our last meeting last Tuesday, they provided some outstanding advice on something that we acknowledged was simply procedure for us. I won't go into great detail, but we've changed our pattern and we'll continue to change our patterns, observing what the advisory group has told us. Yeah, we want to make sure that we are allowing for the change that needs to happen. And in order to do that, we need to have some independence amongst the people in that group.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. I remember hearing some time ago that the language is the cutting edge of thought. And so clearly you've thought this through and are employing that in your language. Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing updates in the future. Item number 10 is public delegations with an opportunity for 5 minutes from anyone who would like to have a few things to say to this committee to do so. Clerk Olmos, have we anyone who wishes to speak this evening?
Yes, certainly through the chair. We do have Matthew Pretty. So he's been patiently waiting until this section to speak. So we will allow him to speak.
Welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you. This meeting I have not attended as much. I've been attending more of the engineering meetings. This is actually one of my first or second times connecting with this meeting. I think the committee meetings are fantastic. It gives a chance for people to be open. I know numbers are down with Zoom. We could definitely try and advertise, but I think getting things done right now, the COVID, guys, I thought it was a hoax. It's not a hoax. And we got to be really careful with our BIA and people downtown here. We need to remember people to try and wear masks going into store. I saw a few people not doing that, and the lines are very long at Loblaw. We need to do traffic control and keep people safe. We're going to have many people coming up here. I humbly request to Director Culver to please approve my asking. This is my Christmas wish, and my wish after all these Elvis festivals. I was thinking about it today. I was just like, wow, that was fantastic. And it was. Harborview Park is where it's at. I saw Fran Webster today, a local guitarist, and we were talking about the Case Arts Center. And I said, I hope it goes in, and I hope they follow up. You've got a lot of consulting going on, and that's good. That was an inquiry thing, getting more consultants, and rightly so. And good job on that path at here, Ontario, the new sidewalk engineering. Very good. And the tree planting, Councillor Hamlin will be pleased, and the public. I humbly request a boardwalk to be installed at the Labyrinth section of path all the way to the small beach leading back to the path of the main path. The reason being, wildlife protection in this area is very low. Councillor McLeod, you are on the board of NVCA. You would understand this most likely. Wendy Martin did respond. She said high water levels are dictating some issues of path creation and preservation and installs such as Sunset Point, which was well done, and the north parking at Niagara will be great when that new light comes in. We've got issues at Secret Trail between Courthouse and Niagara. The pole boardwalk is a damn good idea. I've been watching it go along by Labyrinth, the seat by Labyrinth. The great idea, that height, that will be useful for hen and chickens to get a proper height and width going back to that boardwalk. The turtle nesting area, guys, the invocation of Turtle Island as we do now versus Christ, Jesus, and God of the old time Britain in the Middle East affair of thousands of years. And then the word Christ means grist, the movement of bread to water to wine, all this kind of thing. It means grist. And I would like to share with you the need to boardwalk that area to protect the turtles to go underneath into the grasses, to make a habitat, more of a feminine space, and to protect that path. If you can't do that this year, could you please level it out? Could you please add fill? It's muddy. It's become like a half pipe. If you could just add fill to that before the nesting area next year. I put a turtle in the water this year. I found a dead one on that path specifically because of too many vehicular activities, the biking, the walking, the this, the that. We need to step up, guys, for wildlife. It would be silly if we didn't. Can we please try to do that? Level out the path there or install a boardwalk from just that area near the labyrinth over towards Small Beach. Director Culver, I would please ask you to consider this. I sent everyone a letter. Could you please respond what the cost could be for such a project? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Pretty. And I wonder, is there a response that we can ask for from Executive Director Culver, or can we can wait on that for another meeting entirely? If you have something you can say now, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Matt's query brings up an opportunity just to mention to the public that we are moving cautiously when it comes to what's called the Turtle Trail, actually, that goes beyond the labyrinth towards the east. And that one of the reasons why we're going slowly, there was an intent to recondition that trail this year, but we actually put a pause on it because of the concerns over turtles nesting. And so we're going to try and engage the services of an ecologist to help us figure out what the risks are there. There is a lot of interest in ensuring that the turtle habitats are preserved, but we haven't yet engaged the services of an ecologist. So we're going to do that because we want to know that it is an actual nesting area, how we can best provide for that, and where else we need to be sensitive along the waterfront. So we'll get informed and then we'll take an action once we know. Boardwalk might be the solution, but there might be other solutions as well.
Thank you. It seems to me it wasn't very long ago that particular piece of trail was really just like single track, and now it's quite wide. Things have definitely changed in that particular part of the trail. Any other members of, oh no, that's this is not that. Any other members of the public who would like to speak to this committee?
Certainly through the chair. Again, we have attendees participating. So if anybody else wishes to speak, please raise your hand or press *9 if you're on the telephone. And it doesn't look like we have any further delegations.
Thank you very much, Clerk Almas. And that brings us to item number 11 on our agenda, which is other business. Is there any member of the committee who has other business they would like to bring up at this juncture? It would appear not, which brings us to item number 12 on our agenda, which is moved by Councillor Madigan that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee hereby be adjourned. All of those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you for your time and attention.
Madam Chair, good night.